My name is Garrett, and I want to start by pondering something this morning. And I want us to ponder grace. And for those of you who have given your life to Jesus and accepted Him and have been in the church, it's so good to think back to when we first gave our life to Jesus. Maybe it was at a summer camp or just at our local church, or some friends in the community reached out to us and just led us to Jesus. And whenever I think back to my story and accepting Jesus, I see those moments packed with grace where the Lord just met me where I was at when I was young, and I thought, life was hard, and He met me there and just welcomed me into this beautiful family. And as I got to know Jesus more, life got harder and things got crazier, and it's just been packed with grace because He's been with me in every moment and has walked me through every joyful moment and every painful moment. And I just can't help but think about the Lord's grace and goodness. And the first song we're singing this morning is called Grace Alone. And I love to posture myself like recognizing the appeals the Lord has made to me, the way He's reached out to me and has shown His love and has just shown His sovereignty over my life and how big God is and how amazing He is. And for maybe some of you in the room who haven't accepted Jesus yet or gotten baptized and you're just still testing the waters or figuring this thing out, I can let you know right now this is no accident. It's no mistake that you're here right now, but the church and the people in your life who are telling you about Jesus, that is God's appeal to you today to meet Jesus and to come to Him. So just as we worship, I would love for us to just be in the posture of recognizing the Lord's love for us and how far He has traveled to meet us and continue to walk with us today.
Salvation, Lord, you died that I might He has ransomed His grace runs deep. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, He died for me. The Son sets free. Oh, is free in me. I'm a child of
Lord, for that right there. Just that in the promise and the pain that you're with us, that we can call you Emmanuel, that you're present with us in our struggles. And Lord, but not only our struggles, but our celebrations and the amazing times we've experienced, Lord, we thank you for being present with us. God, we thank you for reaching out to us, into our lives, and to showing your love and your grace. God, we praise you and we worship you this morning. We pray. Amen.
So the last couple of weeks we've been in Acts chapter 17, and we've looked at Paul and his being in the city of Athens during this time, and we looked 2 weeks ago. We really looked at kind of like why he preached to them. He went into the city. He's supposed to wait for his companions, and he was just overcome with this compulsion to share the gospel message, right? And then last week we talked about kind of the what, or the what his message was, right? We looked at, obviously we know he's preaching about Jesus, but we looked at what specifically he said to them, like what were his words and why did he have those words? Today, what I want to do is I want to go back into Acts 17. We're going to read some of the passages that we've already read. But today what we're going to do is we're going to look at the how. How did he go about it? Like what was his direction? What was his way of approaching this discussion, this conversation, this sharing of the gospel with these people from the city of Athens? And so we're going to jump into Acts, and we're going to go back to chapter 17, and I'm going to start, again, I started here a couple weeks ago, but in verse 16. And we're going to go for these first 5 verses here. It says, "While Paul was waiting for them in Athens, he was greatly distressed to see that the city was full of idols. So he reasoned in the synagogue with both Jews and God-fearing Greeks, as well as in the marketplace, day by day, with those who happened to be there. A group of Epicurean and Stoic philosophers began to debate with him. Some of them asked, 'What is this babbler trying to say?' Others remarked, 'He seems to be advocating foreign gods.' They said this because Paul was preaching good news about Jesus and the resurrection." That's powerful words right there, apparently. Then they took him and brought him to a meeting of the Areopagus, where they said to him, "May we know what this new teaching is that you are presenting? You're bringing some strange ideas to our ears, and we would like to know what they mean." All the Athenians and the foreigners who lived there spent their time doing nothing but talking about and listening to the latest ideas. And so Paul goes into Athens. By the way, I love the sound of kids. In fact, I know it can be distracting, but I love a church that has kids in it. So I will never complain about kids in the room or kid noises. So Paul goes into Athens, right? And Paul comes into the city and he sees these idols. He sees idols everywhere. And I talked about this a couple weeks ago. Like, there's niches in walls, there's places in people's homes, there's idols everywhere. And so the first thing he notices is this is the people who's religious. And he starts using his observation skills. Right? As he goes through this passage, we see that Paul is noticing different things. He notices there's the Epicureans and the Stoics, these two types of groups. He understands there's a place in the passage where it says they did nothing but talk and discuss new ideas all day. People from Athens, that was like their passion. They were all about the newest ideas, and they would just sit down all day and just discuss and have conversations for hours and hours and hours about theological aspects and deep views and about this and about that. And so Paul recognizes that that's how these people communicate. Not every city you can go into and you can go find the area where the people sit around and discuss all day and just have conversations getting really deep about Jesus all day. But Paul recognizes that's where these people are. That's the way their minds work. That's the way the city works. And so he is able to start picking up on all of the different clues and understanding what's going on in the city. And it says that as he's debating with them, it's such a new idea. They're so excited about new ideas that he gets taken into this group called the Areopagus. And basically, if you've studied the Bible at all, you've probably heard of the group, the Sanhedrin, which is the Jewish group. It's a bunch of Jewish leaders, high Jewish, powerful men who would make a lot of religious decisions, and it was almost more of a courtroom type atmosphere. And the Areopagus was almost the Greek version of that. The Greeks were in authority as people, so the Areopagus had more political power, but this was a group that had a lot of religious say in decision making and political say in decision making. And so Paul then was brought from a debate type situation into now more of a courtroom type situation. And he's going to have to adapt his speaking style. And so what Paul does is, as he's in the city of Athens, he's starting to gather clues and put the pieces in place that he needs to recognize. So he starts paying attention to everything that's going on around him. And you see, that's kind of what we need to be as Christians, is when we're with other people, we have to be paying attention to what's going on in other people's lives and learning about them. Now, my kids are at the ages, and this is one of my biggest pet peeves, and it shouldn't be, because my kids are just at the age where this is like normal. But my kids are at the ages where they will come over and ask me a question, and I'll answer their question, and then 5 seconds later they'll say, now what did you say? Like they'll say, hey, can I have a snack? Sure. And then they'll be like, did you say I can have a snack or not? I'm like, yes, I said you can have a snack. You asked me a question, I gave you an answer, did you not listen to the answer? And we'll do this. This is one of the biggest things about Youth Offers. We'll gather together before dinner. And we will all come, all 6 of us, we'll get in the same room, we eat dinner together most nights, and we'll pray. I'll have one of the kids pray. We'll get done. Everybody will get their food. A lot of times we kind of do a buffet style because with 6 people, it's just how it works better. We'll do buffet style, we'll sit down, and inevitably, almost every night, one of my kids will say, have we prayed yet? we just had a prayer. Did you know? Your brother was standing right beside you and said the prayer. Did you not listen? And it's kids' ages. It's where they're at in life. I shouldn't be frustrated, but it drives me bonkers. And they'll ask me questions about something in life. And they'll ask me a question about something in life, and I'll start to give an answer. And I know this is probably going to be surprising you guys. Sometimes I can, on rare occasion, tend to be slightly long-winded with an answer. But I will have so many times I'll start to answer their question. In the middle of my question, they'll wander off. And I'm now answering myself a question. And why am I still talking? And it drives me bonkers. But when you're a Christian, we have to be people who as Jesus followers, we learn about those around us, right? And we pay attention. We have to be people who actually pay attention. People are willing to communicate, but we have to be willing to listen. We have to be observers, people who pay attention in this world and actually try to seek out the clues, because people will give you clues about what they're facing in life, the struggles they're going through, the situations they're having, the joys that they're wanting to share with somebody. People will share that with you. But we have to be willing to pay attention. We have to be willing to stop focusing. It's so easy. We all want to focus on ourselves and share our own stories. We have to be willing to stop and instead turn your attention somewhere else. And that's what Paul did. Paul set this example of going through Athens and looking and paying attention. What's going on here, so that I know as I talk about Jesus, I can share this based on what I've seen with the clues. In fact, we see that in this next section. As we move into verse 22 of Acts 17, it says, then Paul stood up in the meeting of the Areopagus and said, people of Athens, I see that in every way you are very religious. For as I walked around and I looked carefully at your objects of worship, I even found an altar with this inscription, to an unknown God. So you are ignorant of the very thing you worship, and this is what I'm going to proclaim to you. So here's how he starts his message, right? He comes in, he knows it's the Areopagus, this is a courtroom. Now I've got to present my case, and I've got to present it well in a way that these people are going to listen to my words, right? And so he comes in, first off, it always is good to start with a compliment, right? So clever. I see that you guys are very religious in every way. And he can say that not just as an empty compliment, but as an honest compliment, because he's observed it, right? He's seen the idols, he's listened to their conversations, he's paid attention to who they are. So he starts by telling them, hey, I understand where you guys are at. Let's start there. Let's understand. I understand you guys are awesome people. Let's not start by tearing people down. Let's start by building people up. I see where you're at. And then listen to his first words. He goes, I even noticed an idol that you had that was inscribed to an unknown God. Now think about this today. How shocking would it be for a pastor in our world today to get up in a public setting and to start talking about Jesus by talking first about a foreign idol? I think in our country we would have a lot of people pretty upset at that, if we're being honest, right? a lot of people would be pretty like, what are you doing, Paul? Why are you starting with your entire conversation? I thought we were talking about Jesus here. I thought you were wanting to tell people about God, and you're going to start your conversation with an idol. You're going to start talking to these people about Jesus, and you're going to talk about some fake golden statue that's not even a real God. That's the beginning point of your conversation about Jesus. That's where you're going to start. But you see, Paul understood where these people were. And he'd done the research, and he'd gathered all of these clues, and now what he's doing is he's putting those clues together. One of my favorite genres of like books and movies is like mystery. I love mysteries. And I think like one of the things that draws us into like books and movies is when we can see ourselves like in one of the main characters' roles. Like you can kind of put yourself in their position, right? And then that's one of the things that draws us in. And I think for me, like there's this excitement of like, I wish I could be like the smartest guy in the room. And like, I walk in and everybody else has missed all of these clues, and I just walk in like Sherlock Holmes and like, oh, well, there's a leaf over there, and there's, you know, a scratch on the wall here, and there's this here. So that means this is what happened. And like, I wish I could, I'm not that. I'm usually not the smartest person in the room, but I wish I could have those skills. So I enjoy that type of genre where Sherlock Holmes comes in and puts all of these pieces into one neat package and goes, here we go, this is what is going on right here. And that's what Paul's doing. He's basically a spiritual detective, right? And he comes in and he observes everything that's going on with these people so that as he begins this conversation, he understands where he has to start it. Because what happens too often, and we all are guilty of this, right, is so often when we try to talk about Jesus, we start where we're at. We start a conversation where we're at. And it's good to share personal stories. It's good to share Jesus and what he's done in your life. But we also have to understand where they're at so that we can bring the two together. We have to understand where somebody else is at. Because if we want to help somebody in this world, if we want to tell them the truth, if we want to show them love, if we want to care about them, we have to understand where they're at. And it takes from gathering the clues and then piecing them together to understand where to begin the conversation. And Paul's so brilliant. In fact, Paul talks in the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 8. I'm going to read it. It's not that long of a chapter, so I'm going to read the whole thing. But here's what's going on. So this is actually a situation between two groups of believers, right? And there's a situation where people are eating food sacrificed to idols. And some people are going, well, they're idols, they're statues, like, what's the big deal? It's just meat, right? Who cares if it's been sacrificed? It just means it was already cooked for us, I don't have to do the work. And the other group's going, hey, whoa, this is meat that's been sacrificed to idols. This is like been a part of worship of something other than God. We should not be eating this. And so Paul comes in and they're like, which one of us is right? Tell us who's right and which group is the wrong people so that we can, rub it in their faces. And so here's what Paul says. Verse 1, it says, now about food sacrificed to idols. We know that we all possess knowledge. And I love, this is one of those phrases, the second half of verse 1, I go back to for myself all the time. But knowledge puffs up while love builds up. It's great to have knowledge. It's awesome to have knowledge. Paul is one of the most learned guys in the entire Bible. He was very well studied. But so often when you are knowledgeable, it can just make you feel really good about yourself. But it's love. It's love that actually builds others up. And so Paul says, knowledge puffs up while love builds up. But those who think they know something do not yet know as they ought to know. But whoever loves God is known by God. So then, about eating food sacrificed to idols. We know that an idol is nothing at all in the world, and that there is no God but one. For even if there are so-called gods, whether in heaven or earth, as indeed there are many gods and many lords, yet for us there is but one God, the Father, from whom all things come, and for whom we live. And there is but one Lord, Jesus Christ, through whom all things come, and through whom we live. But not everyone possesses this knowledge. Some people are still so accustomed to idols that when they eat sacrificial food, they think of it as having been sacrificed to a god. And since their conscience is weak, it is defiled. But food does not bring us near to God. We're no worse if we do not eat, and no better if we do. Be careful, however, that the exercise of your rights does not become a stumbling block to the weak. For if someone with a weak conscience sees you with all your knowledge eating in an idol's temple, won't that person be emboldened to eat what is sacrificed to idols? So this weak brother or sister for whom Christ died is destroyed by your knowledge. When you sin against them in this way and wound their weak conscience, you sin against Christ. Therefore, if what I eat causes my brother or sister to fall into sin, I will never eat meat again, so that I will not cause them to fall. And so Paul is saying, look, the issue isn't the meat. It's not about who's right and who's wrong in this situation. The issue in this situation isn't who's got the right perspective and who's got the wrong perspective. The issue truly comes down to, like, showing love in this situation. Like, some people are going, hey, it's just idols. Okay, that's fine. So eat the meat. I don't care. Eat the meat. If you feel like it's a sin for you, it's a sin for you. Like, so don't eat the meat. Don't force yourself to eat the meat. If you're the meat eater, don't try to convince the meat eaters that or the non-meat eaters they're wrong. And don't try to say, hey, come, it's okay. You can eat the meat. Don't worry. No, that's not against their conscience. He calls them in this situation the weaker brother, right? They're just not there yet. It's okay. Like, don't force somebody to do something that they're not spiritually. Yeah, it's not wrong to eat the meat. It's also not wrong to not eat the meat, right? There's not a sin to not eat meat sacrificed to idols, so why worry about it? In fact, he goes, don't even eat the meat in front of them, because if they're struggling with it, now all of a sudden they're struggling with you with it. Well, let's have love for one another. And at the end, I love Paul's perspective at the very end. He goes, if it's going to cause somebody to stumble, I'll never eat meat again. Of anything. He's like, I'll just cut meat out of my diet. I'd rather love somebody and care about them and not have a problem than cause somebody to stumble, right? And we do this, I feel like we do this sometimes as Christians. In some ways we do this, right? If we are around somebody that we know is an alcoholic and really struggles with that, we're usually trying to be pretty aware, right? You're not gonna have a drink in front of somebody who's an alcoholic because you want to be respectful, right? You don't want to have them struggle with this. We want to be careful with somebody who struggles with lust, and so we want to try to be modest and protective of somebody who struggles with that in their life. Then there are things like that we try to be careful with, and we try to like love on somebody. We don't want to drag them down, so we try to be careful with how we act and talk and behave. But then there's other things that we just don't even. It's like I have the right. And I think that's one thing. Again, I talked about this at the beginning. Like, I love being in our country. I love the United States, but but it's not perfect. Jesus wasn't an American, and sometimes as a U.S. citizen, we get this rights type thing. We get this idea that we have rights. I have rights, and it's like, well, yes, but what are you going to do with those rights? Because just because you have knowledge that you have rights, love is what builds up. and isn't it worth giving up something that you have the freedom to do? That Christ has given you the freedom to act a certain way, or behave a certain way, but isn't it worth giving that up? To love on somebody, to help somebody grow in their relationship with Christ, or at least, if nothing else, at least not damage their relationship with Christ. In fact, Paul, I love this, in the very next chapter of Corinthians, chapter 9, another one of those passages that hits me every time. He says, though I am free and belong to no one, I have made myself a slave to everyone, to win as many as possible. To the Jews I become like a Jew to win the Jews. To those under the law I became like one under the law, though I myself am not under the law, so as to win those under the law. To those not having the law, I became like one not having the law. Though I am not free from God's law, but I'm under Christ's law. So as to win those not having the law. To the weak I became weak, to win the weak. I have become all things to all people, so that by all possible means I might save some. I do all this for the sake of the gospel, that I may share in its blessings. And so that's where we get down to the ultimate part of this. So Paul, he goes into Athens, and he does the work, right, of gathering clues, and he does the work of assembling these clues so that he can reach these people in a way that some of them might listen. He knows he's not going to win everybody. He's not going to be able to help everyone. He's not going to be able to help restore their relationship to God. But if he can just help some, if he can just do a little bit to help some of them, right? And he brings up two different things here. He brings up two different aspects. One is he does it to try to save some, to save people. And the other is this blessings of the gospel, right? And he talks about, I also do this because I want to share in the blessings of the gospel. And these blessings of the gospel, what are the blessings of the gospel? Well, if you look at Paul, it's not getting rich. It's not having a cushy life. Those aren't the blessings of the, so what are the blessings of the gospel then? The blessings of the gospel come from a strengthened relationship in Christ. That's a blessing of the gospel. And when you are willing to step out and try to help somebody, you receive that blessing. Your relationship with Christ is strengthened. And one of the things is when your relationship with Christ is strengthened, then your fears about the present, your anxieties about the present are minimized. And your trust and hope in God in the future grow. And when you are living out this purpose in Christ and you receive the blessing of the gospel, when you're obedient to Him, another blessing is the fact that your purpose in life becomes more revealed. You have a purpose in life, but you begin to understand it more and to fulfill that purpose more and more. And those are the blessings of the gospel that we get to receive. This amazing gift from God, these gifts, and this hope in eternity rather than this world.
Yeah.
And it comes from us being willing to try to connect with people where they are. When I was in, I was probably in middle school. I was about 12 years old. So I was about well, I guess you were 13. She's grown up. I was about 12. I didn't grow up in a house with video games, and it wasn't that my parents were against video games. We just didn't have them. It just wasn't a thing. And so when I was 12, I saved up, and I went to the store and I bought GameStop a used Sega Genesis video game system. And they were already a little bit old at that time, but that was what I wanted. I didn't want to take forever to save up. So I bought a system, I bring it home, plug it in, I start playing on my Sega Genesis. This is so much fun. And I have a great time playing on my Sega Genesis. And I play, and a couple months go by, and I'm playing it, and I start buying other games. I'm a sports guy, so I like playing sports games. I had some action games too. You get these games. Well, then after a few months, one time on a Saturday, I was sitting there playing. And my dad came over. He's like, "Hey, I'll play with you." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I'm like, "Well, what should we play?" My dad he was like racing games, so we usually played a racing game. Sometimes we would play golf or something, something dad like. And so we play. We play for an hour or two, had a great time, we laugh, we play, and then the next week, on an evening, he'd be home and we'd play video games for 45 minutes or something, and we started playing, off and on, and it was so much fun, and we were having a great time, it was awesome, and I can remember we did this for, it was like 6 months or something, and I can remember being there, and I was sitting with my mom one time, my dad wasn't even around, I was sitting there with my mom, I was like, isn't it so cool that my dad loves video games too? We just have so much fun because my dad loves video games, and I love them, we can just play together, and I'll never forget my response. I was 12 years old, so I was 27 years ago. I want you to do the math. My mom turned to me. And moms are so good about sharing wisdom, just sprinkles of wisdom. And just quietly she said, I think he probably just more enjoys spending time with you, and video games is just how he does it. And I was like, oh. And it's not that my dad didn't have fun playing video games. That's not something he would have done. He never played them when I wasn't around. Because he didn't care about the video games. What he cared about was me. He cared about the relationship with me. And so he was willing to meet me where I was. As a 12-year-old kid, he wasn't going to go, hey, come on, let's go have a cup of coffee and enjoy a conversation. No, he found what I was interested in and met me in that space, right? And he poured into me, and we were able to have laughs and conversation while we're doing something that was my thing. Because he's the adult, he's the parent, he came down to my level instead of expecting me to come to his level. And that's as Christians, if we want to help somebody, we have to understand where they're at. We can't expect them to come to where we're at. We can't expect the conversations to be about things we're interested in or we care about or the understanding that we have. We have to try to understand where people are at, where they're at. And I'll admit it, it is hard. And I don't know about you guys, I've got a couple things going on right now. We have jobs, right? We have jobs that keep us busy. Some of us have kids. Even if you have kids that aren't in the house, you still have kids, right? Even when they're not living with you, you still have responsibility over kids. You still want to pour into them. We have hobbies and friends, and we have so much going on. Life is busy. Life is slammed. We have this, I don't know if you guys noticed, but like when there's a new church starting up, there's a lot to do. And frankly, I'm a little overwhelmed with that. If I'm going to be perfectly honest, it's overwhelming, right? Life is overwhelming. And sometimes we just want somebody to care about us. Right? I just want, what's that old song? I like talking about you, but occasionally I want to talk about me. I don't know if you guys have heard that. I won't sing it for you. Look it up later. We want to talk about us, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. And we should have those times when we can talk about us and express ourselves, but we're called to something greater. We're called to something more. And when we are willing to meet people where they're at and to help people where they're at, whether it's a fellow believer, whether it's somebody who doesn't have a relationship with Jesus yet, when we're willing to meet somebody where they're at, to try to help them and to try to help them grow, not only do we help save some, but we get blessings. We get to participate in the blessings of the gospel. And Paul understood that, and that's why he was willing to go to such great lengths in order to reach the people of Athens. I'm going to leave you with three questions today. I always like to leave you with questions. Number one, how can you become more of a spiritual detective to those around you? What will it take you to be better at stepping back and being an observer, right? And you probably know this about me. I can talk. As a pastor, I've gotten really good at talking. And so I have to train myself. I have to be very careful and step back and go, I need to be an observer. I need to pay attention. I need to put reminders in my life. I need to have somebody to keep me accountable in life. To say, hey, you might be talking a little too much. I need to, what do each one of us, what do you need to do to take that step to be a better spiritual detective, to be able to understand where people are at in life and where their needs are, where their struggles are. Number two, are you truly willing to sacrifice your own wants and comforts to help restore God's people to Him? It's a broken world, right? It's a broken world. People need God. They need Him more than ever. And for us to be able to be a part of that, yes, we get the blessings of the gospel, but it's also inconvenient. It takes work. And are you willing to discomfort yourself to make a difference in somebody else's life? And here's the last one. how can you keep proper priorities as you try to impact others for Jesus? I think this is a lot of impact on the previous question is how can you keep that proper perspective? How can you remember that in sacrificing, in being willing to give of yourself and keep others where you're at, you can impact them. You can help save some. And you do receive, it doesn't always necessarily feel like in a moment when you're stressed and you're busy and you're exhausted, but you receive the blessings of God. I have never once sacrificed myself for somebody else and come away super upset. I've had times where I was frustrated because I helped somebody and then realized, I don't know if they actually needed help. But even then, I have comfort there in knowing, hey, I would rather err on that side. I would rather mess up on the side of I tried to be too helpful and it actually didn't work out than kick myself later. Because I've done that. I've been pretty upset at myself in that I've been too busy or too focused or had something else more important. Or I just didn't feel like it at the time. I didn't step in and make a difference. It's worth it for that connection, for that blessings of the gospel for ourselves, but even as much to help save some, to help make a difference in somebody's life. Let's pray. Lord, I thank you as we continue to go through Acts. I thank you for Paul's example. Lord, he was not perfect. Paul messed up. He was a sinful man. He was human, and we understand that, but at the same time, he was a man with a lot of wisdom. And I thank you for just the example that we have in the Bible to just learn from him. To learn how important it is to seek out clues in others' lives about what's going on, about where they're at, about who they are, to be able to put those pieces together, to be able to use what we know and understand about people to love on them, to just care for them, to pour into them, so that maybe through some small chance might save some, Lord. And we understand even that it's not even us saving them, but it's you, and that we just get a chance to participate in that. Lord, thank you for that. Thank you for the blessings as even as we try to honor and live out the work you call us to. You bless us. We get so many spiritual blessings because of that. Lord, help us to never forget that. Help us to cling to you and to seek out ways to impact others for you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. I'm going to read, actually I'm going to go back to Corinthians, but I'm going to jump ahead to chapter 11. We're going to do a lot of Corinthians today. In Corinthians, 1 Corinthians chapter 11, Paul talks here about the Lord's Supper, about this gathering together. And he says this. He says, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and said, "This is my body, which is for you. Do this in remembrance of me." In the same way, after supper, he took the cup, saying, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood. Do this whenever you drink it in remembrance of me." And we know that communion is so much about this remembrance, right? It's about this remembering what Christ did for us, his sacrifice on the cross, his resurrection and defeat of death. But then Paul adds this in, verse 26. He says, "For whenever you eat this bread and drink this cup, you proclaim the Lord's death till he comes." And when we take communion, that's what we're doing. We're actually telling those around us, telling each other in this room, announcing to the world that we believe this is real, that we believe this is true, that we believe, yeah, Jesus actually did come. He walked on this earth, he died for us, and he rose and he's up in heaven right now. And this is us proclaiming that to the world. It's a special time where we get to just pause and join and just simply on Christ. And I love communion. It's one of my favorite times of every week because in the midst of a busy, crazy life, in a crazy world, it's just a pause. It's just this moment to reflect. So I'm going to pray, and then as Garrett plays, we're going to you can meditate for a minute, or you can go take communion and then come meditate, whatever you want. Just have a few minutes to take communion as you desire. Lord, I thank you again. I thank you for Jesus. I thank you for his sacrifice. Lord, help us never be afraid. Help us to always have confidence and boldness to proclaim you to this world. to wear proudly our faith and our dependence on you. Because of the sacrifice that you made for us. Because of the love that you have given to us. In your name I pray.
Christ is my firm foundation, the rock on which I stand. When everything around me is shaking, I've never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus. 'Cause He's never let me down. He's faithful through generations. So why would He fail now? He won't. He won't. He won't. He won't. I still got joy in chaos. I've got peace that makes no sense. I won't be going under. I'm not held by my own strength. 'Cause I built my life on Jesus. 'Cause He's never let me down. He's faithful through every season. So why would He fail now? He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. He won't. Christ is my firm foundation, the rock on which I stand. When everything around me is shaking, I've never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus. 'Cause He's never let me down. He's faithful through every nation. So why would He fail now? He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. When my house was built on you, and I'm safe with you, and I'm gonna make it through. Rain and wind, but my house was built on you, and I'm safe with you, and I'm gonna make it through. But my house was built on you, and I'm safe with you, and I'm gonna make it through.
Lord, that you don't fail. That God, we just praise you for your forgiveness and your love towards us. And Jesus, your sacrifice. We thank you for gathering here. We can gather here and proclaim Jesus together and just dwell on his forgiveness and his love towards us. God, we thank you so much for this morning. In your name we pray. Amen.
So we've got next Sunday here, and then the next Sunday after that, we're actually going to be having a prayer Sunday in the school, which is exciting. So that'll be February 5th, and we'll meet there at 9 on that Sunday. We'll be there early than after that. But this last year has been such an interesting journey, really. And I've been in ministry coming up on 18 years. In 18 years, it's been some awesome times. It's been some tough times. Been some awesome times. But this last year of focusing on Story Church has been a time when I have never seen God as strongly or as often as I have. Because this is one of those things where He has called us into, He's called Audrey and I think you guys, into this huge step of faith, right? It's starting a church it's not cushy, it's not easy. There's a lot of excitement because it's new and it's fun and creative. It's also a lot of scary because you don't know what's going to happen. But I keep seeing Him work over and over and over again, and just bringing circumstances and people and situations and doing things. And it's been so exciting. And even I just think about everybody in this room and just the journey that we've been on together and the conversations that we've had and the way God has made connections there. I'm super excited. And this year has been awesome. It's been a great time of growing and connection and relationship. And it's been unique for me in a lot of ways as to how I've ever experienced with church. And it's opened my eyes to what church can be. And yes, we're all human. We struggle. We're imperfect. So it's going to be broken. but there can be beauty in that too. And so I'm super excited. I'm grateful for you guys, grateful for the relationships we have. I'm excited even as the dynamics change. And in some ways I'm a little sad about that. But I'm also excited because I know the blessing that we've had, and I'm excited to bring others into that and to see God use that and see people in that journey. So it's going to be very exciting. So please, encouragement with that is to please keep praying and keep lifting the church up. Lift Audrey and I up, please. Lift one another up as we're facing all of this, because it is exciting. It's a lot too, and I know we're going to be busy over the next several months just getting this thing off the ground and going. And it's going to be a lot, and I know I'm asking you guys to do a lot, and I'm going to continue asking. But it's not for me. It's because I believe it's something greater, and I believe that the sacrifice is worth it for the blessings of the gospel, right? And so I could not be more excited. I really couldn't. I am excited to see what God's going to do. So, but please be in prayer for this. A couple things coming up as we continue to prepare tomorrow night. Wow, already tomorrow night. Do you have a slide for me? Yes, tomorrow night we're going to have a kids ministry volunteer meeting. So if you're interested in serving in kids ministry, if you're interested in knowing what's going to be happening in kids ministry, if you're not interested in serving kids ministry, but you're like, I probably should anyway, because kids take a lot of people. No, it's awesome. I was a kids pastor for 9 years. I love kids ministry, and they're our future. And again, they are worth pouring into. We have some awesome kids. Meeting tomorrow night, and they'll be at Garrett and Shelby's house. So talk to them if you need their address if you don't have it already. But that's at 6:30, and Shelby's just going to be doing some live training, talking about expectations, what things will look like as much as possible. So please try to make that if you can. And then next Monday, we have another training/meeting. You have a slide for me on that one? No. So here, if you look at the black slide, There is a lot of announcements there. No, but next Monday, I still am working on the time, but for anyone who is signed up to do AV or interested in learning about AV or anything, if you're just like, it doesn't mean you're going to be, and again, if you go to the kids meeting, it doesn't mean you're going to be locked in serving in kids ministry for the next 20 years, unless you want to be. And if you go to the AV meeting next week, you're not locked in doing AV for 20 years unless you want to be. But it's meetings, informational meetings. Is that my cue to be done talking? Nobody ever looks at AV people unless they mess up. Just so you know before the meeting comes.
That probably multiple times.
That's right. So that'll be next Monday. We're gonna meet at Broadway Christian up in Mesa, because that's where all of our AV supplies are at the moment. And we're gonna Zach, who is a young guy on staff there who's amazingly brilliant with audio-visual stuff. We're going to go and he's gonna train us on setup, tear down of the stuff, how everything works and runs. It's as simple as possible, but at the same time, we still have to learn and get. And so I'll be at that one, and as many of you guys as can be there that might ever want to do AV or interested in just growing your AV skills. If you could come, I'll let you know a time when I know, because I wanted to make sure that worked for people, and also Zach. I think that would be a good day. So plan on that for next Monday. Other than that, I think that's it. So I'll be done talking, and I'll pray. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys, and I'm so grateful for you guys responding to the call that God has put on your hearts to say, hey, I want you to be a part of this. And so thank you guys for doing that. Lord, we are humbled. God, I don't know why you brought all of us here, other than it's your will. And I know that you desire us to start Story Church and to have this congregation that grows and develops here in King Creek and Santan, and to just bless the community. Lord, that there are people here that desperately need relationship with other people, yes, but with you even more, and they don't even realize it. So, Father, I pray that you would help Story Church be a church that loves our community, that makes an impactful, meaningful difference in our community, and that most of all points people to you. In your name I pray.